Hello everybody, and welcome to our council meeting Wednesday, 21st of July 2021. Live streaming. As the meeting chair, I give my consent for this open council meeting to be streamed live, recorded and published online in accordance with council's live streaming policy and governance rules. The chair and or the CEO have the discretion and the authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. Thank you. Virtual meeting statement. The COVID-19 Omnibus Bill 2020 provision allows council meeting attendance by electronic means. The requirement of the meeting being open to the public is satisfied by the meeting being streamed live to council's internet. In the event of technical issues with live stream, the meeting will be adjourned. Councillors are deemed as being in attendance if they can hear proceedings, they can see other members in attendance and can also be seen by the other members, and they can be heard to speak. Mobile telephone reminder. And I've already heard one go off in the background today. So if I could just remind everyone to turn your mobile phones off or under silent, that would be fantastic. I now go to Councillor Whelan. If you could please read out the statement of acknowledgement.
West Coast Shire Council acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first Australians and recognises that they have a unique relationship with the land and water. Council further recognises that we are situated on the lands of the traditional owners, the Bunurong Boonwurrung members of the Kulin Nation, who have lived here for thousands of years. We offer our respect to their elders, past and present, and through them, all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, wherever they are.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. And I ask on Councillor Bauer to read the councillor statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All members of this council pledge to the Bass Coast Shire community to consider every item listed on this agenda based on the individual merits of each item without bias or prejudice by maintaining an open mind and disregarding councillors' personal interests so as to avoid any conflict with our public duty. Council being a conflict in an item to make a proper disclosure to the meeting, I will not participate in the debate or vote on the Mr. Mayor, we can't hear you.
Mr. Mayor, there's a static in the background.
Okay, thank you everybody and welcome back to our streaming of the council meeting, 21st of July 2021. Apologies for that little technical issue. I believe we started to get some pretty ordinary audio at the councillor statement, so I'll ask Councillor Bauer if you could reread the councillor statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All members of this council pledge to the Bass Coast Shire community to consider every item listed on this agenda based on the individual merits of each item without bias or prejudice by maintaining an open mind and disregarding councillors' personal interests so as to avoid any conflict with our public duty. Any councillor having a conflict of interest in an item will make a proper prior disclosure to the meeting and will not participate in the debate or vote on the issue.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Okay, item number letter A. Apologies, we have none. Declarations of interests, I have none. We get to the confirmation of the minutes. So, Council, to confirm the confirmation of the 16th of June 2021 minutes. Can I have somebody move and second that motion, please? Councillor Kemp, and seconded Councillor Lane. All in favour? Councillors Tassari, Whelan. I can't see your hand. Thank you. Councillor Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lang, Lasserve, and Holstead. Cancelled. Carried. We're off to a good start. It's going to be one of those meetings. Okay, public question time, and we have quite a few questions to go through today. So, as per previous meetings, I will read out the questions and our CEO shall read the answers. Question number 1 is from Levenus van der Noot, and it's regarding the Coronet Bay Community Hall. Who at council thought it was a great idea to charge local community group fees of $15 per hour to use a community hall? Didn't they realise the amount of damage that could do to the health and wellbeing of our local community? Ms. Wasty.
Through the Mayor, fees for community halls managed by community asset committees are determined by the committee in partnership with council. A process to consider the waiving of fees is available by contacting council officers.
Question number 2 is from Tim O'Brien. There's 2 questions, and the topic is Save Western Port Woodlands. Does council have knowledge of the specific chemicals used in sand washing process in Sand Supply's mine in the Gerties Nature Reserve? Which mine is used primarily for sand washing, and of other mines intersecting with Western Port ground waters and creeks such as Wholesome, Grantville, which wash sand on site? And question number 2, in light of Dr. Wednall's report raising grave concerns around toxic acrylamide, there we go, I've got there, contaminants used in sand washing by Danny Premix, and of the risk of contamination of groundwater by the dangerous soluble pollutant antimony, will council conduct rigorous environmental testing of waterborne toxics around all mines in Grantville Forest Corridor? Ms. Wasty.
Through the Mayor, the Resources Branch of the Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions, DJPR, is responsible for regulating mining activities in Victoria. This includes enforcing, monitoring and managing compliance of mining activities under the Mineral Resources Sustainable Development Act 1990, MRSDA. Under the MRSDA, the licence holder needs to meet specific conditions and provide an approved work plan to DJPR. Council is not privy to the details, including specific processes or chemicals to be used, contained in work plans submitted to DJPR by licence holders. Council recently wrote to Minister for Planning, the Honourable Richard Wynne, to provide a copy of Mr. Wetenhall's report and draw the Minister's attention to the serious concerns raised therein. Council notes that under the MRSDA, a licence holder has the duty to minimise impacts on the environment, and the Earth Resources Regulation may serve a remedial notice in the event of a breach of licence conditions. Council has neither the authority nor capacity to test for waterborne pollutants around all licensed mines in Grantville's forest corridor.
Question number 3 is from Neil Rankin. There's 2 parts to the question, and it's regarding the Grantville Nature Conservation Reserve. Recently, Sand Supplies manager called the police when community walkers accessed the reserve west of the historical formal entrance, outside of the Works Authority boundary. Would a fence erected on the mine entrance road? Does the mine manager have a right to erect the section of fence beyond their WAB? And question number 2, is council aware of any controls over the triangle of reserve compromising a 50-metre wide farm zone strip abutting the fence section of Q1 and the northwest WAB and extending westward through the reserve to an extended length of Bass Highway? The manager claims rights over the section reserve.
Through the Mayor, Council understands the mine manager secured approval from the relevant authority, Parks Victoria, to erect the section of fence adjacent to the mine entrance road. This approval was granted on the basis that the fencing would provide significant benefit to the Nature Conservation Reserve, NCR. Council understands this fence has effectively halted illegal activity in this end of the NCR, including illegal harvesting of firewood, dumping of commercial quantities of rubbish, and theft of native grass trees. Council records indicate the presence of an approximately 50-metre wide buffer of native vegetation along the western boundary of the Work Authority area. This buffer, zoned Farm Zone 1, forms part of the gravel extraction reserve and is not part of the NCR managed by Parks Victoria. Council is confident that the Sand Mining Company has no interest or rights within the formal Nature Conservation Reserve. As a gazetted reserve, this is permanently protected from all extractive uses.
Question number 4 is from Vic and Kate Mitchell. There's 2 questions, and its topic is planning permit for 5 Harris Road, Ventnor. Why was a building permit granted for 5 Harris Road, Ventnor, overriding 6 separate household objections, breaching 3 planning scheme provisions, leaving resident views impacted by a building rising to 8.1 metres with a roof that is not flat or gently sloping? And question 2, why did the NOD report 190307 falsely state the height of the building does not block any views of the coast or other nearby residents? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, the property in question is subject to the Design and Development Overlay 1, DDO 1, which has a permit trigger of 7 metres. The 7-metre trigger under the DDO 1 does not prohibit development, but seeks to address and manage the interface of development along the coastline. In assessing applications under the DDO 1, Council will consider the purpose and intent of the DDO 1 in addition to VCAP precedents to limit the impact on neighbouring views. The decision made on this application is consistent with previous decision-making, planning policy and precedents within Ventnor. Anyone who submitted an objection to the decision can appeal the decision at VCAP.
Question 5 is from Graham Jolly. Its topic is San Remo Secondary School. A new secondary school is under construction in San Remo, opening in 2022. When will Council dig the first soil to construct a new long-term footpath along Shetland Heights Road in San Remo prior to the school opening?
Through the Mayor, a new path will be constructed along Shetland Heights Road from Back Beach Road to the school. Works are expected to commence in September, weather permitting. The path is planned to be completed prior to the school opening in Term 1 2022.
Question 6 is also from Graham Jolly, and its topic is Capital Works Program. Would Council please provide the financial figure for Capital Works projects carryover as of 30th of the 6th, 2021, year's end?
Through the Mayor, council officers are currently reviewing the year-end capital works program, including identifying funding that needs to be carried over into the 21-22 financial year. This information will be available following the finalisation of council's 2020-21 financial statements.
Question 7 is from Michael Guz. Topic is Municipal Emergency Management Plan. Council has a Municipal Emergency Management Plan 2017 V1.2 September 2019. What sections and actions in the plan has Council enacted for the COVID emergency outbreak at San Remo and Phillip Island from the 14th of the 7th, 2021 and into the future? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, this emergency is being managed at a state and federal level with no specific activation required through Council's Municipal Emergency Management Plan. Council is working with the responsible agencies to ensure the local community can access reliable information.
Question 8 is also from Michael Guz and its topic is Council Finance. Would Council please provide financial figures as of the 30th of June 2021 for cash on hand, cash in bank and investments? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, council officers are currently working through end of financial year processes. This information will be available following the finalisation of council's 2020-2021 financial statements.
Question 9 is from Claire Diffie and its topic is bins, and there's two questions. Our Mayor was interviewed on ABC radio recently and asked a question about picking up the red waste bins in peak times. The Mayor said funds were not a problem. Will Council ensure the red waste bin is picked up permanently during peak periods from December 2021 and onwards? And question 2, the Mayor and Council stated residents in the Bass Coast Shire have reduced landfill waste by 77%, which is Council allowing trucks, why is Council allowing trucks with other shires to dispose their landfill waste at the Grantville landfill site when the site's life 3 to 4 years?
Through the Mayor, Council will continue to provide a fortnightly red bin general waste curbside collection service for all users throughout the Bass Coast. During peak holiday periods, Council will continue to provide additional organics and recycling services. Council will continue to investigate relevant strategies and is planning increased and targeted communications to be delivered to assist in educating our community and visitors about our curbside bin collection. Additional curbside services are available on request, as well as general information and detailed advice on waste management and recycling via Council's website or by phoning 1300 B Coast. Council's transfer station and landfill in Grantville accepts commercial waste and recyclables from private businesses at commercial rates. The total capacity of the Grantville landfill site, based on current and projected filling rates, is expected to accommodate residual waste for up to 30 years.
Question 10, Kevin Griffin. Topic is South Gippsland Conservation Society. In its April newsletter to the South Gippsland Conservation Society claims the Bass Coast Shire Council has been refused a permit to remove vegetation necessary to implement design option 2 of the Inverloch shared pathway. Is the claim made by South Gippsland Conservation Society in its April newsletter correct? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, Council recently received a request for further information from DELWP in regards to the application for native vegetation removal. The requested information was provided to DELWP. Council understands this is currently being assessed and as yet has received no formal notification of the outcome of the application.
Question 11 is also from Kevin Griffin. And its topic is General Manager Business Transformation. What is the role and purpose of the Bass Coast Shire Council Senior Management position of General Manager Business Transformation? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, the General Manager Business Transformation contributes to the organisation's delivery of the community vision and council plan by providing executive and strategic leadership for the transformation and technology, financial services, people and culture, governance and property departments.
Question 12 is from Keith Godridge. There's two parts to the question. The topic is Commonwealth Government money erosion control. Question number 1, of the allocation of 1.5 million paid to council by the Commonwealth Government for foreshore erosion control work, how much has been spent to date? And question 2, where has the expenditure been applied? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, the federal government granted 1.5 million to Bass Coast Shire Council under the Environment Restoration Fund. This funding is to undertake works to respond to erosion at the Inverloch, Cows Main Beach and Cows East foreshores. To date, $687,000 has been committed by Council to survey and design for the construction of 8 new timber groins and 330 metres of revetment wall and construction of the 8 groins at the Cows East foreshore. It is anticipated that a further $413,000 will be committed to construction of the revetment at Cows East by the end of 2021. This will equate to $1.1 million of the total $1.5 million committed by the end of this year. The total of the $1.5 million grant is required to be committed by 31 March 2023.
Question 13 is from Gay Jolly, and its topic is support of business following COVID. A big thank you must be given to Council, Bass Coast Health and local news media informing Bass Coast residents on Facebook about the COVID emergency. What will Council announce as their support to business in San Remo and Phillip Island later this week that is provided? Sorry, I'm going to have to read that again. What will Council announce as their support to businesses in San Remo and Phillip Island later this week that is provided by Council?
Through the Mayor, Bass Coast Shire Council implemented a response and recovery plan in April 2020. This included over $960,000 in support provided to business and community groups in Bass Coast. The support package was designed to complement existing support provided by the state and federal government. Following the announcement of the current state lockdown, the Victorian Government will provide new cash grants for businesses affected by the lockdown. This includes support payments of $3,000 and $2,000 for eligible businesses. Bass Coast Shire was declared by the Commonwealth as a hotspot, triggering a number of support mechanisms, including access to COVID disaster payment for workers adversely affected. Council will continue to support businesses through its dedicated business support team. The team works closely with the business community to educate the importance of operating COVID safe and ensuring they have access to the latest information and support available. Council will continue to work with state and Commonwealth government to advocate for appropriate support for our business and community.
Question 14 is also from Gay Jolly, and its topic is Kilcunda Skate Park. Would Council please advise when will the first construction peg be driven into the ground for the start of the new Kilcunda Skate Park?
Through the Mayor, Council is currently working closely with the Kilcunda community and leading consultant Place to develop the final designs for the Kilcunda Skate and Place project. Once the design is completed, along with cost estimates and budget plan, Council will be in a position to provide a timeline on the delivery of this project.
Question 15 is from Josephine Kent from the Phillip Island Conservation Society. The topic, there's 2 parts to the question. The topic is VCAT P381/2021, proposed caravan park 1285 Phillip Island Road Newhaven. Will Council be formally addressing the proposal in a Council meeting prior to the VCAT hearing? And question 2, will Council be engaging a consultant to represent them similar to the previous application for the same site in April 2019? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, councillors will consider and debate all aspects and implications of this issue as part of Council's agenda.
Thank you. Okay, thank you to everybody who took the time to send those questions in. We now come to petitions, joint letters, deputations and correspondence. Now we've had a petition come in that wasn't part of the original draft agenda, so I need somebody to move and second that we adopt the petition into the agenda. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Holstead, and seconded Councillor Kent. All in favour of adopting the petition into the agenda? Councillors Tassari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lane, Laserve and Holstead. Carried. Sorry, I just got to do my bookwork. Okay, and now if I could have somebody move and second that we receive this petition and as per the recommendations. So here's the petition, sorry. So the recommendation that the petition be received and lie on the table for future meetings. So I had Councillor Whelan, was it, that had his finger up first? Yep. And Councillor Holstead. All in favour? Councillors Tassari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lang, Lasserd, Holstead. Carried. All right, we come to item letter F. Notice of motion, F1 application for extension of work authority Dynamics Premix Quarries Proprietary Limited. It's your notice of motion, Councillor Whelan. Would you like to move and second your move your notice of motion? Without talking to it, you're on mute, Councillor Whelan.
Yes, I would, please, Mr. Mayor.
And seconded. Just moving the motion as it was. Yep. So moved by Councillor Whelan, seconded by Councillor Lang. You may now speak to your motion, Councillor Whelan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, this is an important development. There was a panel appointed by the Minister. As we go back in history, the Minister called the Dandy Premix application for an extension of their works area. He called it in and set up a panel to review it, which basically took council out of the equation. Council subsequently dealt with it at a council meeting earlier this year and did a submission to the panel hearing. The issue is that the panel had concluded its hearing when a report by Professor Wetenhall became available, which called into question some significant environmental impacts of the sand operations that had not been taken account of in the panel hearing. So it was important to send a copy of that report to the Minister as soon as possible. So consequently, the Mayor wrote to the Minister and enclosed a copy of the report and pointed out a very important similarity to the Minister's considerations of the AGL proposal on Western Port, that this would have adverse environmental impacts on Western Port. So therefore, the report should be taken into account, and we would want to see much stronger environmental protections. An email has just been sent to me in fact, I got it yesterday, which points out that similar mining operations occur in a US state, Wisconsin, where they actually require their settling ponds to be lined because of the danger of the leaching of chemicals such as acrylamide and antimony from those operations. If councillors may recall that when we had the owner of the sand mine present to us, he assured us there were no chemicals used in the leaching ponds. Well, in fact, those very chemicals are the subject of Professor Wetenhall's report, comprehensive report, that actually does say that there's a problem, and because those settling ponds aren't lined, that in fact they're directly interacting with the water table and consequently with Western Port. So it's a very important consideration. The fact that the extension of the works area includes breaching the water table makes this a very pertinent consideration. So we're urging the Minister to take account of this report. It's beyond my pay rate to fully comprehend what Professor Wetenhall is talking about, but he comes with very high professional qualification. He was former University of Melbourne inaugural director of the Bio 21 Molecular Science and Biotechnology Institute. So he needs to be listened to. And that's the point of this. And the reason that this is done in hindsight is we wanted to get this report to the Minister before he made his decision or made his decision public. So that was done. Since then, Councillor Lang developed what was going to be an amendment to this, but we've adopted that as part 6 of this motion. And if our governance officer can put that on the screen, it may help people understand it. And what that does is ask the EPA and the extractive industries regulator to have a look at the use of these sorts of chemicals and other toxic materials that may be used in those mines, given that in almost all cases they're within 500 metres of Western Port. So it's a very important consideration. And so that is an addition to what was put out.
I'm going to have to stop you there for a second and pause and just put a hold to everything for 2 seconds while I just seek some clarification.
It's the original motion. So no. Councillor Whelan didn't move his amended motion at the beginning. He moved, and Letitia seconded the existing motion. So neither of them can move an amendment now. So if they want to do the amended one, we need another councillor to move the amendment. No, because when we went through, Councillor Whelan didn't say he was amending his motion. He moved his existing motion, which is in the what does he need to do? We just need
Sorry,
Council.
sorry, 2 seconds. Okay, sorry about that. I've just had to get clarified. Apparently, Councillor Whelan, what we have moved and seconded is the original notice of motion without the addition of Councillor Lane's contribution. I now have to ask for you if you would accept a leave of council for us to then move in the additional work of Councillor Lane, and if all councillors are accepting of that, we can then proceed. Are you willing to?
Whatever you just said, Mr. Mayor, I seek that. And apologies for putting it back the front.
That's okay. You've done well. You've done better than I did. So if I can just have a show of hands from all councillors to make sure that we're happy to accept the leave of council to allow Councillor Lang's alterations that we spoke about earlier on to form part of the original motion. And I've got Councillor Tsari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lane, Laserve and Holstead. So that is adopted. There is the additional point 6 is the additional wording that will come into the original notice of motion. I actually might, just to be certain, I might get you, Councillor Whelan, since it's your notice of motion, to read that out. Part 6.
Okay. Part 6 will become that the Mayor will write to the Earth Resources Regulator and the Environment Protection Authority to provide a copy of the Wetnell report and request a full review of all currently operating sand mines in the Grantville corridor to determine if the issues raised in Professor Wetnell's report are also present at those other sites, and if so, whether toxic chemicals at these sites have the potential to contaminate Western Port and the groundwaters feeding into Western Port.
Thank you. Can I ask if that can, yeah. So Councillor Whelan, would you like to just quickly summarise what you've been speaking about?
Yeah, look, bottom line, the purpose of the notice of motion was to put on the record the letter that we did send in some urgency to the Minister so that he had the opportunity to consider this before publishing his decision and taking it into account in forming his decision. So we did that. Subsequently, there has been a suggestion, and in fact it was in the question that was asked earlier in the council meeting from Mr. O'Brien, that in fact we should be doing testing of Western Port. We don't have, that's beyond our remit to do that, but in fact to ask the EPA to do it seemed like a logical conclusion of the notice of motion that we're doing, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a great deal to add. Just I wanted to highlight that for our community, this is a pivotal moment in our quest to protect the environment for future generations and for current generations. I think that the report by Professor Wettenhall shows very clearly that the toxic chemicals we're talking about do cause mutations and can poison waterways. And we're talking about an area which is within 5 kilometres of the Marine and Coastal Act, as well as a Ramsar listed wetland. So this needs to be treated with the urgency it deserves. And I think that even in the original objections posed by the community, a lot of concern was raised as to what would happen if they had a veggie patch in the backyard. What would happen if they went to water that or use that and they discovered that there was alarming levels of toxic chemicals that were released as a consequence of these mines. So these things need to be investigated, and I encourage councillors to consider this as an option to request the Earth Resources Regulator, the EPA, as well as the Planning Minister to consider.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this notice of motion? No. Councillor Whelan, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote? Oh, there's a new one. We've just lost Councillor Whelan. That's not one I've come across yet.
We can still vote. We've got a call.
Yep.
We can still vote, so Councillor Whelan doesn't have the option to. I think I said early on in the day it's going to be one of those, and here we are. All right, so we can apparently.
Mr. Chairman, give him a moment to come back.
We have a quorum, so we will go with the.
Here he is.
Councillor Whelan, you've made it back just in time. You didn't miss the vote. Councillor Whelan, would you like to summarise or put it to direct to a vote? Councillor Whelan's not hearing us. He's got a frown on his face. We'll put it straight to a vote while we work on getting Councillor Whelan back to us. So we've got a
here,
caller.
Mr. Mayor.
So we'll put it
The
to,
gremlin's got me just at the crucial time.
we're putting to a vote. All in favour of the notice of motion as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lang, Laserve and Holstead. Carried. All right, we now come to the Mayor's and Councillors' reports. As per always, while we've been streaming, all councillors will send through their reports and they'll be uploaded with the minutes, as to will be mine. I would like to, though, just acknowledge the passing of Jack Dunn, who passed away on the 21st of March 2021. Prior to the amalgamation, Jack was a councillor in the Shire of Bass, where he was part of the redevelopment of the Marine Parade San Remo development. He was a very active member of the community and was part of a number of local groups and will be sadly missed. Okay, we now come to reports requiring council decisions. Item H.1 Planning Application 20028 Development and Use of the Camping Caravan Park at 1825 Phillip Island Road, Newhaven, to be introduced by Mr. Sturton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider Planning Application 200028, which proposes the use and development of the subject land for a caravan park and camping ground, inclusive of associated uses of displaying a sign, alteration to a road zone category 1 and the removal of native vegetation. The application was advertised and received 58 objections. This application is currently before the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal for review, as a decision was not reached during the statutory timeframe. The proposal has been assessed against the Bass Coast Planning Scheme and has been found to contravene both state planning and local planning policy. It is recommended that Council inform VCAT who will refuse this application. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturton. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation as it reads? Councillor Rooks and Councillor Kent. Councillor Rooks, would you like to speak to the recommendation or the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Tassari. Yeah, this caravan park proposal has come up a number of times over the years and has been knocked back each time by council. And again, the community is telling us, with 58 people objecting, that they're not keen for the caravan park to appear in this location. There's a range of reasons why the objectors have put forward, and also there's a range of reasons the planning officers have suggested it's not appropriate. I want to focus on one area, which is the question of town boundaries within Phillip Island. And that's a really important aspect for our community, that the urban areas of Phillip Island remain as they are, and we don't expand outside that. The caravan park, which is set up, will create a bit of an urban environment with all the infrastructure and the high number of people that will come in during the peak periods of the year. And so all of a sudden we might be creating another little urban area outside our town boundaries, and I'm sure the community doesn't want that. It's also a very sensitive area. We have the dunes to the south, we have a conservation area to the west, and on the east side we've got private landholders planting away madly trying to revegetate the area. So it's a very sensitive site, and again, not appropriate to plonk a caravan park there. So I'm supporting the motion to refuse. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Councillor Rooks has basically summed it up. There's only one more point I'd like to make to all the objectors. Please turn up at VCAT and give your comments. We want to hear from you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Lasserve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also agree with the officer's position on this with 58 objections. It's in an inappropriate location for flooding. That area is renowned for its flooding over the years, and it's a critical environmental area, and the existing vegetation on the site needs to be protected. I'd also like to raise the issues of that beach. The beach there is not considered to be a safe beach by this Surf Life Saving Australia, and it's highly hazardous. So if we're going to be considering putting a caravan park, like an urban, inviting visitors from all over the area to come and accommodate themselves there, I think that was highly risky. And the other point that I wanted to add was that this is located in a farm zone, so therefore it's inappropriate under the guidelines of that zone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. Would anyone else like to speak to or against? Councillor Whelan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree with everything's been said, and in particular, Councillor Lasserve's comment about the beach. This is a treacherous beach, and we should not be. It'd be culpable to be bringing people into a situation, a caravan park situation in that area. The other thing about it, the highway, is that I participate with the Friends of Seneca Estate in the conservation reserve across the road, plantings and things like that. The water, the flooding area that we're talking about is just to be drained into a conservation reserve. So you've got essentially urbanised runoff being put through a conservation reserve that is already battling issues around salinity and those sort of things from the water table. It's most inappropriate. I started saying about the highway. So coming out of the Seneca Estate, it's treacherous, trying to get across the highway and park in there. Imagine if they had a 50-foot trailer on the back. We had a death not far from there in Surf Beach, and that was a better situation when you look at visibility in that area than what you have coming over Crest and down to this location. Environmentally, it's a very bad, would be a very bad approval. This group we knocked this back last time. I don't know why we didn't do it within the time frame this time. That's a bit of a mystery to me, but I do know that this group withdrew it last time and then brought it right back on at Christmas time. So that's interesting timing. But we're in a climate emergency, and what we've got here is looking to bring people into a caravan park situation with no way of getting groceries or anything else anywhere near that location, and they would have to go into Cowes or into San Remo. It doesn't fit. The visitor economy strategy does call for a caravan park, but not of this sort, certainly not in this location.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Councillor Halstead. Oh, you're on mute, Councillor Halstead. You get the trophy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have anything further to add. I support everything that councillors have already said on the topic. I did just want to thank the officers. This report is a long list of policy that this application doesn't address. I think it's probably one of the one of those at the top of the list that I've seen that have such a long list of policies that haven't been addressed, and it's terrific to see that the officers have really put some work into this. So I'll be supporting the motion or the recommendation as it stands.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? No. Councillor Rooks, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Put it to a vote, thank you.
Thank you. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lang had a hand up and then disappeared, I think. Is that right, Councillor Lang? Yep. Councillor Laserve and Holstead carried. Okay, H.2 Planning Application 20029, development of land for 2 dwellings at 6 Charmadene Court, to be introduced by Mr. Sturton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present Planning Application 200029, which seeks to develop the land for the purpose of 2 dwellings at 6 Charmadene Court, Cows. This application was advertised and received 7 submissions. The application was presided upon by Council at its meeting on 16th of June 2021, at which Council refused the application. The applicant has since submitted amended plans to the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal through an appeal process. Council is required to now offer its position on these amended plans. Changes to the plans include increased setbacks, alteration to Building 1's footprint, reduced site coverage, facade alterations and landscape changes. These amendments have been considered and assessed against the Bass Coast planning scheme. It is advised that the proposed changes do not alleviate the original concerns that resulted in a recommendation of refusal. It is recommended that Council inform BCAT that its position of refusal remains as per the report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturton. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation that reads? Councillor Rooks, and seconded Councillor Holstead. Councillor Rooks.
Thanks, Mayor Tassari. I once again support this recommendation from Council. I do appreciate that the landholder has gone to some trouble to submit some different plans, which have improved the setback significantly and it's reduced the footprint. But they started with such a big bulky building to start with. There was a long way to come back to get it to a reasonable size. It still fails various standards within our planning scheme. It's a very bulky build still on a residential block. I also want to mention the vegetation cover. There's been some discussion around that. You're meant to achieve a 35% vegetation cover allowance on a property. The applicant has included the easement, which is next door to their property. They do own that land, but they've included that as part of the vegetation cover. It's not possible to vegetate an easement, and therefore I feel that shouldn't be part of it. The intent is wrong to say that you should be able to include that. So that's another issue there, that the amount of vegetation cover doesn't comply. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have anything further to add other than I agree with Councillor Rooks on the easement statement. You can't use an easement as a place where you can include vegetation.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No. Councillor Rooks, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Put it to a vote.
Thank you. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Councillor Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lang, Laserve and Holstead, and I've got Councillor Whelan on the phone. So I have covered off everything, I reckon, today. That is, he will sustain from voting, and that is carried. Unbelievable. Okay, item H3, Planning Application 200386, development of land for a dwelling at 12 Bunya Drive, Cape Woolamai, to be presented by Mr. Sturton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present Planning Application 200386, which seeks to develop the land for the purpose of a double-storey single dwelling at 12 Bunya Drive, Cape Woolamai. The application was advertised and it received 7 objections. The planning permit triggers for this application are the Design and Development Overlay Schedule 1 and the Bushfire Management Overlay Schedule 1. The proposal has been assessed against the Bass Coast Planning Scheme, and it is found that the proposal is consistent with the local neighbourhood character. It is recommended the council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for application 200386, subject to conditions as outlined in the report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Could I have somebody move and second the recommendation as it reads? Councillor Kent and seconded Councillor Rooks. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. It sounds like it's Councillor Rook's day today.
Let's have a good day.
Look, I fully support the officer's recommendation. Bunya Drive consists of very high quality, modern looking houses, majority of them. Bunya Drive actually travels towards San Remo, and to grab a view there, you've actually got to look through your side windows of your house at the house next door. The house height is slightly above 7 metres, which has produced a trigger, that's all, a trigger for it to be looked at. I personally think that this house fits in within that neighbourhood, and I can't take this any further. I just don't see any reason to object it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Rooks.
And only to add that the report stated that the views of people to the ocean won't be affected, which is an important consideration, and therefore further reason to support this application.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? No. Councillor Kent, we'll put it to a vote.
Put it to a vote, thanks.
All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lang, Laserve and Holstead carried. Item number H.4 Planning Application 210015, variation to covenant of 6 Homestead Mews, Cape Woolamai. Mr. Sturton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present planning application 210015, which seeks to alter a covenant to the land at 6 Homestead Mews, Cape Woolamai. The application was advertised and received 10 objections. The application has been assessed against the Bass Coast Planning Scheme and has been found that the proposal is likely to result in loss of amenity, loss arising from change to the character of the neighbourhood and other material detriment. It is recommended that council resolve to refuse to issue a planning permit for planning application 210015. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturton. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation? Councillor Kent, seconded Councillor Rooks. Councillor Kent.
It's a little bit like Groundhog Day, Mayor.
Seems to.
Look, with this one, we're talking about the same estate as the last application. This estate has planned areas where people can build their future house, and those areas are designed to take into consideration everybody else within that community area, their views and so forth. This application looks at making this building area a lot larger, and it will impact on the local community, and the local community will have a loss of amenity. I also believe that under the Planning and Environmental Act that the council cannot proceed for any further with approving this application. So in regards to this, I fully support the officer's recommendation that this should not be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Rooks.
No, I support what Bruce has said. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? We'll put it to a vote. Councillor Kent. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lang, Laserve and Holstead carried. Item number H5, draft Smiths Beach Town Plan Community Engagement. Mr. Sturton, a starring role today.
I'll live for it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I'm excited to present the draft Smiths Beach Town Plan to Council for the purposes of releasing the plan for community engagement. The draft plan sets out a vision for the Smiths Beach Township, utilising a lens of environment, land use planning, access and movement, social connection and celebration, public realm improvements township character, services and governance as its basis. The draft plan proposes 4 game changer projects: creating a trail to connect YCW and Smiths Beach, implementing the YCW Master Plan of 2014, creating a new shared space for Smiths Beach, and a range of access and movement improvements. The local community and stakeholders have been involved in the development of the draft plan, which underwent a first stage of engagement in 2020. The feedback from that process has informed this draft plan. It is proposed that the draft plan will be consulted upon with the community throughout July and August of 2021, utilising a range of methods, including drop-in sessions, physical signage, advertisements in local media and council social media posts. The consultation program will include the local community, relevant stakeholders of the township, and the project-based reference group and community panel. It is recommended the council resolve to authorise the draft Smiths Beach Town Plan for community engagement. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Sturton. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation, please? Councillor Bauer and Councillor Rooks. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think this is a wonderful example how the council has put together a plan, communicated with the community, and come up with an excellent master plan. And as it says in the documents attached, it's a game changer, and I do believe it is. It's well thought out, and I wholly recommend it to other councillors to vote in favour of it.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Tessari. Yeah, this is very exciting for the township of Smiths Beach and the wider community around it to get behind this plan. The planning started in 2020 and continued into 2021. I was lucky enough to be part of the stakeholder reference group for this plan and became very aware through listening to the attendees to that of the environmental sensitivity of the area and also the huge impact that tourists have on the area during the peak periods. Also, just want to mention that this is being done with the consultant Kinetica, and they've worked really well through a period of COVID and lockdowns off and on. So congratulations to them and the council staff for continue proceeding with this draft plan. There are some great initiatives in the draft plan, as already been spoken, and I encourage the community to get out there now and attend one of the feedback sessions or to get online and provide their feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Whelan.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, as the other Island Ward councillors have already said, it's a good project. I want to give a shout out to the Smiths Beachcombers Association because they've been on this case now for a number of years, and hopefully we'll be getting close to having something that represents the master plan once this engagement is through. We've had the YCW car park master plan for some time. This picks it up and hopefully gives it some impetus towards being fully implemented. The pathway between YCW and Smiths Beach is a great idea, and it's well overdue, and community members have been pushing for that for a long time. And I think there's been good discussion with the St Bede's there, and if we can get a good agreed position there, I think it'll really help that communication between those two beaches, and the change in parking arrangements at Smiths Beach where it becomes a drop-off point, I think really fits with the pivot that council's making towards active transport as well. So no, I think it's some really good germs of progress in there, and I look forward to the community embracing it and engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. I'm just watching Councillor Rooks trying to get out of the light there. It's quite bright. Does anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Councillor Lark.
Yes, just a simple acknowledgement that one of the game changers is access and movement, which is a critical part of consideration and hopefully will be embraced by the community during the consultation period.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Would anyone else like to speak to or against before we put it to a vote? No? Councillor Bauer, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Thank you. I'll just summarise saying what Councillor Whelan said is really correct, the connecting path between YCW and Smiths Beach. I spoke to some of the residents and local shopkeepers down there who've embraced this project, and I think that's a really good example of how we can move forward to satisfy the needs of our community, and it gives me great pleasure to put this to a vote.
Okay, all in favour of the recommendation as it reads? Councillors Tassari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lang, Lasserve and Holstead. Carried. Item number H6, Bass Coast Shire Council Advocacy Priorities to be introduced, and I understand that this is his very first opportunity to introduce, and I've got that wrong, so there we go. So Bass Coast Advocacy Priorities to be introduced by Mr. Stefan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present a revised list of advocacy priorities to Council. Since the adoption of the Council Plan, Council has adopted its advocacy strategy and 4 updated versions of its priorities over the last 4 years. These were implemented through successful campaigns in the lead up to the state budget, state and federal elections. Council has the opportunity to reconfirm its priorities and align its advocacy campaigns under the title of Our Bass Coast, Our Future. A revised list is presented to Council for its consideration and includes dedicated priorities to pursue with both the governments that align with our policies and funding opportunities. As seen in previous years, there will continue to be issues and opportunities that Council will advocate on behalf of the community. If not presented in this list, it does not diminish their value or importance. This report recommends that Council approve the revised priorities. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Stefani. Just shows when things aren't going well, you can get anything wrong. Christian has been our gun advocacy man for years, and I still got that bit wrong. So can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Whelan, and seconded Councillor Lasserve. Councillor Whelan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's a very important part of our operations as a council, advocacy, and I pay tribute to our officers over the last few years. They've become very competent in this area. At the support they gave us recently, implementing the advocacy strategies in Canberra was particularly effective. Barnaby aside, he stole the show a bit, but anyway, great effort. And look, I'm not going to go through them, but a great list of priorities there for us to pursue. I will mention one on everyone's mind is the aquatics proposal. We've never been in better shape in regards to aquatics, and all we need now is to attract a big fish, as in the federal or state government, to stump up the funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Councillor Lasserve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I also just want to add there's some really exciting projects on the list. And as the officer said, you know, it's not the only things that we'll be doing, but it certainly gives us a strong case to go to those ministers and the government and really putting a strong case forward that we're ready for funding. And I reckon, you know, certainly endorse the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? No? Councillor, you got into the 11th hour. Councillor Bauer?
Well, I had my hand up pretty early. You just didn't see it. It was on to the left. Anyway, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Stefani for his introduction there and saying it's not limited to, because there's so many issues that we are dealing with. And I would like to reiterate what Councillor Whelan said about the aquatics, which is a really hot issue in our shire. And the other thing that I would like to highlight is the Bass Coast Dinosaur Trail, which I think will be a really big asset for our shire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Would anyone else? Councillor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, I just wanted to highlight that this is a really strategic approach that Council has to securing funds for projects so that we can hit the ground running. We would all love to have a very, very long wish list, but unfortunately, if we go to the government with a wish list that isn't strategically well thought out, we're likely not to get funds for anything at all. So I'd like to also congratulate the councillor officers for their great amount of work, as well as councillors and the mayor who, you know, probably got a few frequent flyer points from heading over to Canberra and everywhere else to advocate for the needs of the community.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lang. I'm sure I'll read about that. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No. Councillor Whelan, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote? We'll put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tsari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Brooks, Lang, Lasserve and Holstead. Carried. Now, item number H7, electoral boundary review, to be presented for the first time in his debut is Mr. Box.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide Council with a summary of the proposed electoral boundary changes released by the Electoral Boundaries Commission on the 30th of June 2021. The Commission will accept submissions on the proposed electoral boundaries until the 30th of July 2021. Councillors have requested officers prepare a council report with options to help inform a potential submission, with the intention to retain the entire municipality within one electorate. This report recommends that council submit feedback to the Commission, requesting that Inverloch be retained within the electorate of Bass and reallocate Langlang East, Katani, Bales, Corralin and Narnagoon to Gippsland South. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Box, and very, very well done. Can I have somebody move and second that? Councillor Whelan, and seconded Councillor Kent. Councillor Whelan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This is an important initiative we're taking here. The way the electoral boundaries have been put out in the draft form is that Inverloch ceases to be part of the electorate of Bass and goes to South Gippsland. We're one of the fastest growing regions in the state, around about 2.5% a year, but last year we grew at 3.3%. There are a lot of issues in growth pains that occur, and it's important we have a coherent policy that's occurring and coherent consideration. I think the representation needs to be unified in that regard. And so I think it's very important that we make this submission and try and keep the Shire together as much as possible. Looking at the reallocations we're suggesting, I wouldn't know how to get to some of those places. I know you can get potatoes at Narnagoon. That's about the extent of it. So I think the suggestion is fine. I think those areas would have more of an alignment with South Gippsland in any event. So I think the work that's been done by Mr. Box and his team is particularly good, and I commend them for it.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. Just an emotional comment. Inverloch doesn't want to lose us, and we don't want to lose Inverloch. There's so much connection there in Bass Coast to Inverloch, and we need to keep you. Simple as that.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Lang, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm still getting my head around the procedures, but I'd like to know if it's okay to propose an amendment. I don't know. Yeah.
What are you proposing?
If I may briefly, that the submission requests that in its submission that council requests the Electoral Boundaries Commission respect and acknowledge our traditional owners and First Nations people by consulting with the Bunurong Land Council to consider changing the name of the Bass State Electorate.
So point 3 on the screen there.
Yep.
You're happy with that? So I need someone to second that.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Bauer?
Yes, there's a point of order there. I've got from the Electoral Commission, every Victorian is represented in State Parliament by 6 members, 1 member Legislative Assembly, in an electorate called a district, 5 members in Legislative Council. So I think we should use the word district instead of Bass State Electorate.
That is, I'm being told that is correct.
So can we change the name? Can we change?
We've just changed it on the screen there, point 3, to show Bass State District.
Thank you.
Okay, so can I have somebody second that we allow that amendment? Councillor Holstead. Okay, Councillor Lang, you may now speak to your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This amendment was arrived to my mind through a meeting I had last Thursday with the Bass Coast South Gippsland Aboriginal Reconciliation Group, who raised the issue of the electoral boundary redistribution and the potential for consideration of name changes to better acknowledge the traditional owners and our and First Nations people. So I think that this is an opportunity to rename the electorate to something that our traditional owners and First Nations people, in consultation with them, and something that they would like to see, that better reflects the land that we're on. So it's fair to say that the name of George Bass gets a lot of airtime, and I think and I do commend the council officers for their fantastic work that would have been considerable with the amount of calculations that would have been undertaken and, mapping. I think that this is an opportunity to look a bit more broadly than just the geographical boundaries. So that's why I'm proposing this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Holstead.
Nothing further to add, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Lang has covered it.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Would anyone else like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is actually quite an important amendment that is being debated here, because there is confusion between the federal seat of Bass and the state seat of Bass. And I think if we can get our own identity in that way would be a very good move, and to acknowledge the first people whose land we are on, I think would be a wonderful step forward, and I recommend the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Would anyone else like to speak to before we put it to a vote? So we're putting to a vote the amendment to form part of the motion. So all in favour of the amendment forming part of the motion. Councillors Tassari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Brooks, Lang, Lasserve and Holstead. That is carried. And now that forms part of the original motion, which was moved by Councillor Whelan, seconded by Councillor Kent. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Lark.
Yes, I just want to suggest that the Yallock Bullock Marine and Coastal Park be included in the submission to incorporate Inverloch in the district of Bass, primarily on the basis of communities of interest. So just an additional strengthening factor for the change.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Good point. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the motion before we put it to a vote? Councillor Whelan, would you like to summarise the motion? No, put it to a vote. All in favour of the motion as it reads and the amendment with it. Councillors Tassari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lang, Lasserve and Holstead. Carried. Item number H8, West Gippsland Regional Library Corporation, transition to non-for-profit entity, to be presented by Ms Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council approval for the transition of the West Gippsland Regional Library Corporation to a not-for-profit entity. This report outlines the significant due diligence undertaken by the West Gippsland Regional Library Corporation to transition to the not-for-profit following changes to the Local Government Act 2020 that came into effect from the 1st of July 2021. In summary, the Local Government Act removes library corporations from the Act and provides a 10-year sunset provision prior to a forced wind-up and or liquidation by the local government minister. This report outlines the implications and limitations to West Gippsland Regional Library Corporation if the decision is delayed, and more importantly, the benefits to member councils, ratepayers, the community, and West Gippsland Regional Library Corporation by making the decision to transition sooner rather than later. The Library Corporation has worked closely with all stakeholders and have engaged external lawyers and accountants to provide expert advice. This advice has been reviewed by the board, members, council's chief financial officers to ensure all legislative and accounting requirements have been met. The new entity will be known as My Community Library. The new brand strategy has been shared with the Library Corporation's Community Advisory Committee, staff and member councils with strong support. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Kennedy. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation as it reads? Councillor Lang and seconded Councillor Lasser. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm the council representative on the West Gippsland Regional Library Corporation board, and I've had the pleasure to be a part of the process to undertake this legal entity change for the past few months. I'd like to congratulate the Regional Library Corporation for being forward thinking and is an industry leader. It's really positioning itself to take advantage of these Local Government Act changes, which actually mandate library corporations to turn into not-for-profit entities. And they're using it as an opportunity to expand our ability to include other member councils, more libraries, and therefore also philanthropic opportunities that can come up from being a not-for-profit. I'd like to highlight that the Library Corporation, this transition can't be finalised until all three member councils approve the same motion that we're putting forward here today. And I would encourage councillors to support it, highlighting the due diligence that's gone into the work, but also highlighting that this is actually a way forward for the Regional Library Corporation to adapt to these changes in the Local Government Act, and also to expand the opportunities that we provide for the community, our services, and continue to be innovative in how we deliver them.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Lasser.
I've got nothing further to add. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think Councillor Lang has covered the points.
Thank you, Councillor Lasser. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? Councillor Bauer.
I'd just like to congratulate Councillor Lang on the incredible amount of time and preparation she's done into this, and it's a salute her on it. Thank you.
Well said, Councillor Bauer. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? No? We'll put it. Would you like to summarise, Councillor Lang, or put it to a vote?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to summarise by highlighting that this legal entity change will not be impacting services that we provide through the library and that council provides, and that all of the things that are within council's ownership will continue to be part of council ownership, and we will continue to have a very strong role on the new board. I will be on the new board, so this is a real opportunity. Should it come to pass when Shire meet next week and South Gippsland also meet.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Okay, we'll put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Brooks, Lang, Lasser and Holstead. Carried. Item number H9, Regional Infrastructure Fund Investment Fast Track Fund Applications, to be presented by Ms Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek authorisation from Council for the allocation of funds in the 2021-22 year, and to apply for 4 grants on behalf of councils and auspice 1 grant on behalf of the Coronella Boating and Angling Club. The grants are available through Regional Development Victoria's Regional Infrastructure Fund and Investment Fast Track Fund program. The projects identified in this report are shovel-ready, aligned to strategic projects, meet the guidelines, and can be delivered within the expected timeframes of the grant body. This report recommends that Council support the applications for the Cows to Real Trail Stage 1, the 130 to Inverloch Rail Trail Bridge Project, the 130 Museum Platform Glazing Project, and the Bass Coast Dinosaurs Trail Creative Concepts Detailed Design. It also recommends that Council auspice the Coronella Boating and Angling Club application for their pavilion project and allocate $110,000 to their project. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Kennedy. Can I have somebody move and second that recommendation? Councillor Lasser, and seconded Councillor Rooks. Councillor Lasser.
Good, thank you, Mr Mayor. This is certainly an exciting opportunity for some of our projects that we've seen tabled before us many times, or requests from our community. So I certainly thank the officers for moving this forward. The Regional Infrastructure Fund and Investment Funds Fast Track Funding System application is, gives us an opportunity, as Officer Ms Kennedy said, these grants are shovel ready, and I would particularly like to say that there is a spread across the whole West Coast, but in particular, I'd like to speak to the Coronella Boating and Angling Club application. I've spoken with the president there, Murray, and I've been over the years spoken to many presidents of that group who have advocated strongly and done a lot of work in the background. So they are delighted, and I'm sure they'll be watching today to know that after many years of getting their plans and all the permit systems required in place, they'll be delighted to have this project presented. The club have already spent around about $42,000 just getting those permits and designs and stuff done. They've got another $40,000 that they've tabled to say that, they're really committed to their project. 74 members and quite a few life members as well. So I must say that this group is certainly, deserves to be and is worthy of this project. I think that the officers, including Mark, Lindsay and Greg Paulson, had been really working strongly with the club, and so I thank them for that. And, they don't have to hold their meetings out in the cold anymore. So I look forward to being there when they open this pavilion. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Laserve, and well done on years and years of advocating. Councillor Rooks.
Thanks, Mayor Tsari. I just wanted to do the rough figures, which I worked out the grant that we're applying for is worth 1.78 million. The council contribution will be 489,000. This is the ratio for every dollar we're putting in, we're getting $3.64 back. So it's a great initiative. And if we are successful, that is savings off our budget, because these 4 initiatives were planning to happen anyway. So if we're successful in getting this, we're saving $1.78 million. So that's fantastic, and I hope my figures are correct. Cheers.
They are now, Councillor Rooks, or they're at least on the record anyway. Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendations? Councillor Lang.
I wholly endorse the recommendations in this motion. I just briefly wanted to add, and touch wood, or I don't know, fake wood, whatever this is, that these projects will be fully funded if the applications are unsuccessful. So, they'll still go ahead. And I'm sure that other funding opportunities will be applied for.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lang. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No? Councillor Laserve, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Let's put it to vote, Mr Mayor. I've been waiting a long time.
Okay, all in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lang, Laserve and Holster. Carried. Item number H10, Wethagen San Remo Cemetery fees and charges to be presented by Mr Mack.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to set the fees and charges for the Wonthaggi and San Remo cemeteries for 21-22. Fee structures for both Wonthaggi and San Remo cemeteries have been reviewed, and a number of changes are recommended. The proposed fees and charges have been reviewed and approved by the DHHS, who have a role in ensuring that there are no anomalies in a trust application and to seek justification for increases outside of CPI processes. The revised fees will allow cemetery trusts to provide services to the community, contribute to perpetual maintenance and reduce the level of subsidy provided by council. The revised fees and charges included as the attachment to the report are recommended for adoption. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mack. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendations as they read? Oh, sorry, Councillor Holstead, I didn't see you down there, and Councillor Bauer. Councillor Holstead.
I've nothing to really say to the recommendation, Mr Mayor, but I do support it.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Councillor Bauer?
I think it's a straightforward administrative thing, and I've got nothing more to add except to say that I've noticed there were no objections from the residents in the cemetery.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? Even look at Councillor Lark even trying to hold back his smile then. No, okay, Councillor Holstead, we'll put it straight to a vote. All in favour of Councillor Tsari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lang, Lasserve and Holstead carried. Item number H11, Cemetery Operations Review, to be presented by Mr. Mack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to recommend that Council review its involvement in cemetery operations to determine the best option for management in the future. There are 7 cemeteries in Bass Coast, with Wonthaggi and San Remo managed by Council as appointed members of the Wonthaggi and San Remo Cemetery Trusts, and 5 managed by the community. Under 7% of cemeteries in Victoria are managed by councils, and there has been a trend towards transitioning the management of smaller cemeteries to larger Class A cemetery trusts. The larger cemetery trusts are often best placed to provide a broader and higher level of service to the community, and this review will consider the benefits that may be available from alternate management models. A report on the outcomes of the review will be presented to Council, and if a recommendation is made to transfer management, a range of further considerations, including community consultation, will be outlined in this report. It is recommended that Council undertakes a detailed review of the San Remo and Wonthaggi cemetery operations to consider the best model to provide services to the community in the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendations as it reads? Councillor Rooks and second Councillor Lark. Councillor Rooks.
Thanks, Mayor Desari. As Mr. Mack said, only around 7% of councils are currently managing their cemeteries, the Class B ones, I think it was. It's not core business for councils to manage cemeteries. So it's appropriate that we have a look and review our operations to see what's best for our cemeteries, for our council and for the community into the future. So I endorse this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Lark.
Thank you, Mayor. This recommendation recognises the need for a significant review of cemetery governance, operations and strategic development. In simple terms, where are we now and where do we want to go? What does our external environment look like and what issues do we need to address? What are our alternative strategic pathways and which pathway should we select? And I compliment Mr. Mack for his comprehensive report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to highlight that this is just a review at this stage and that no decisions have been made as to the outcome of that review.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No. Councillor Rooks, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
To a vote, thanks.
To a vote, all in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tsari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lang, Lasserve and Holstead carried. Item number H12, award tender number 21011, Bunya Street East upgrade, to be presented by Mr. Phil Malta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to obtain council endorsement for the award of the tender for the Bunya Street East pavement renewal and upgrade works. Council received 4 submissions for this project, and the recommended provider, SR Excavations, has provided a high-quality submission with a methodology that will have a minimum impact on residents and users of the road. Internal references, including the recent work done on Fincher Street, confirm that SR Excavations have the capacity and capability to carry out the works. The total expected cost for this project, including contingencies and project management costs, is $1.536 million, which is within the $1.57 million budget. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Phil Malta. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendations as it reads? Councillor Lang and seconded. Councillor Lasserve. Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and apologies for any physical interruptions that'll happen in the background. I can't predict what's going to happen from minute to minute. So I just wanted to I encourage the endorsement of this motion because this project will improve access to a well-used street in Wonthaggi. It's widely used by the community, especially the school community, road widening, footpath construction. There was the tender process has been very rigorous to get the best outcomes, and I hope that it can be approved so we can get the work started.
Thank you, Councillor Lane, and we do appreciate your efforts in staying focused while you have got homeschooling going on. Councillor Lasserve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really, there's nothing further to add. Any kind of major infrastructure roadworks we can do like this really helps cover those gaps in the system that need to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? No? Councillor Lark? You're on mute, Councillor Lark. That's definitely the trophy for today.
I just have a question regarding the scope of works. This road widening, etc., it's sort of goes via the new campus or the old McBride campus right back to Bilson Street to Mackenzie Street. And we know that we've got issues regarding parking in the main town, McBride Avenue and so forth. Does the scope of works cover parking, additional parking along that sector? I couldn't see where it did. Could I ask the officer to explain?
Yeah, we're just looking. I don't know that we actually have a copy of the plan in front of us, Councillor Lark, so we might have to take that on notice and get back to you. I'm just looking at people scurrying, and I don't think we've got a plan in front of us. So we'll take that on notice, Councillor Lark.
It's just, I just want to highlight perhaps an opportunity.
Yep, and yep, again, take that on notice. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No? Councillor Lane, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Nothing further to add. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Put it to a vote. Everyone in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lang, Lasserve and Holstead carried. Item number H13, award of tender 21013, Guy Road Shared Pathway, to be presented by Mr. Phil Malter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to obtain council endorsement for the award of the tender for the Guy Road Shared Path project to SR Excavations. Council received 2 submissions for this project, and the recommended provider demonstrated an excellent understanding of the project scope. Internal references also confirm that SR Excavations have the capacity and capability to carry out the works associated with this project. The total expected cost for this project, including contingencies and internal project management costs, is $2.2 million, which is $300,000 less than a $2.5 million budget allocation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Phil Malter. Can I have somebody move and second that recommendation? And no surprise, we got the hands up first. Councillor Lasserve and seconded Councillor Kent. Councillor Lasserve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I must say I'm really delighted with this motion as well. This project had been identified as one of the council's top 10 priorities for funding under the council's advocacy priorities list. And it just shows you how important that is to have that list and have that advocacy going on year after year. Originally, this project was raised by the community of Tenby Point. The Tenby Point resident ratepayer groups lobbied the ward councillors, and we're going back a number of years for this one. And then the community, also lobbied with the other areas, as in Coronella and Coronet Bay, for their support behind this project. This was taken up by the ward councillors and the officers, and I'd like to thank everybody involved for doing that, to just get this along a little bit further, or to conclusion, and the tender process is part of that. This pathway will connect the communities of Tenby Point and Coronella to the Bass Valley Primary School, the Bass Valley Children's Centre, and to the highway, and will create a safe commutable link. And I think that this pathway will be a great asset to the council's pathway network. And I'm certainly happy to put the recommendation for the tender to the councillors. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to have to start wearing my Nikes, I think, to get off quicker with my hand shut.
You weren't even close, Councillor Kent, to be honest.
Yeah. Look, Councillor Lasserve has just about covered everything, but I'd like to acknowledge the hard work done by council officers. But I'd especially like to acknowledge the hard work by past Councillor Jeff Ellis too, for the work that he put in for this too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Yep, Councillor Holston.
Mr. Mayor, as the last Western Port Ward councillor, I guess I should say something here. Look, I'll be right up front and say it had nothing to do with me. It was all to do with Councillor Ellis, or former Councillor Ellis, Councillor Lasserve and Councillor Kent. But I am very excited to see that this is before council, and yes, I will definitely be supporting the recommendation. Thank you.
Well said to Councillor Holstead. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No. Councillor Lasserve, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Put it to a vote, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lang, Lasserve and Holstead. Carried.
Thank you.
Okay, stat reports. Can I have somebody move and second that the agenda items I1 to I4 be considered in a block? Councillor Holstead and seconded Councillor Whelan. All in favour of Councillors Tassari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lang, Lasserve and Holstead. Carried. Sorry, I've lost my way. Others, I'm missing. There it is. Would any councillor like to ask any questions on any of the reports? No. Councillor Whelan, I just looked away as you put your hand up, so go for it.
I was on your left side, as Councillor Bauer pointed out before. I just had a question, and I think it'll be of Ms Kennedy in regards to the purchase of a backhoe. And given that council is committed to reducing its carbon emissions, whether in fact consideration, I assume it was a diesel backhoe, and whether consideration was given to purchasing a low emissions plant.
Ms Kennedy.
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor. With all our purchases for fleet and equipment, we look at what's the most energy efficient and environmentally sustainable. At this point in time, in terms of fleet vehicles and the like, diesels are still the vehicle that we need to use, but are we keeping our eye on options as we go forward? I would like to share though that all our tools that we use at the depot, so we have electric blowers, small chainsaws, pole saws, etc. And we also have an electric e-bike that we use for investigating our tracks and trails. So we are well aware of our need to look for energy reduced fleet materials.
Mr. Mayor, may I just add that at the ALGA conference there was presenters there who are looking at electric plant, as in mowers, blowers, and street sweepers. And I do appreciate what Ms Kennedy has said. When they're there, I would hope that that'll be first on our list for going green.
Very impressive looking too. Might add, as certainly do the job. But anyone else got any queries or questions on any of the reports? No? Can I have somebody move and second that the recommendations attached with the items I1 to I4 be adopted? Councillor Whelan, and seconded Councillor Lang. Sorry, I've just got to keep up my paperwork. All in favour? Councillors Tassari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Brooks, Lang, Laserve and Holstead. Carried. Can I just ask I didn't write down who seconded the previous. You got it? Okay, sorry, I'm just keeping up my paperwork, that's all. Any urgent business?
Mr. Mayor, I wish to raise some urgent business.
Okay, Councillor Bauer.
I would like to move the following motion. Vote of thanks.
No, you can't move a motion. Sorry, Councillor Bauer, we would have to vote to accept your motion.
Well, I could, all right. How do you want me to phrase?
So you're proposing a motion, Councillor Bauer, sorry.
A vote of thanks.
Can you give me the topic of your motion, Councillor Bauer?
Yes, it's a vote of thanks to Ali Wasey and her team, to you, to Michael Whelan, Joan Child and her team, to staff of
So hang on, Councillor. So it's a vote of thanks at the moment. That's what you would like to be adopted into the agenda. Can I have somebody second that? Councillor Laserve. So now we put it to a vote that we adopt that into the agenda. So all in favour of? Councillor, I'm willing to adopt it into the agenda. Councillor Tassari, Whelan, Bauer, Kent, Lang, Laserve and Holstead, and against and abstain, Councillor Rooks and Councillor Lark. So it's been adopted into the agenda. Now you may move your motion that you want to put into the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wish to
just
move.
briefly, I still have to have it seconded, is that right? Before you talk to it. So just briefly, you want to bring into the agenda a motion to thank Ali Wasey and team and others?
Can I read it to you? That might be easier for you, Mr.
Just briefly, just summarise this.
The motion is as follows. A vote of thanks to be extended to Ali Wasey, to you, Michael, the Deputy Mayor, Michael Whelan, to the head of Bass Coast Health, Joan Child, and the staff of Bass Coast Health for their efforts during the current COVID emergency in Bass Coast Shire.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Can I have somebody second that motion? Councillor Laserve. Now you may talk to your motion, Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This has been an extraordinary time, and I think I speak especially for the other Island Ward councillors and also the Western Port councillors that have the bottom end of the island and San Remo. And it's been an extraordinary time for all of us, and all you, Ms. Wasey, and all the others have worked extraordinary hours to reassure our community. And I just wish to, I hope to formally have included a vote of thanks for all the efforts you have done.
Appreciate that, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Laserve.
I just endorse Councillor Bauer's sentiments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Laserve. Would anyone else like to speak to or against before we put it to a vote? We adopt that. Councillor Holstead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too would like to endorse Councillor Bauer's notice of motion. However, I would like to flag that even though I have supported that this come into urgent business, I'm not sure that this is the correct area for it to be. I don't think it comes under that classification of urgent business, but given the situation that we've found ourselves in, I'm willing to of course, endorse what Councillor Barrow is attempting to get out there in the public realm. Thank you.
Fair call too, Councillor Holstead. So that's, you're happy with that, Councillor Bauer, as it reads?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All in favour of adopting that, please raise your hands. Councillors Tasari, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Laserve and Holstead. Against and abstain. Councillor Whelan and Councillor Lang. Carried. Thank you so much. Then that concludes our meeting. So the next council meeting will be held virtually on the 18th of August 2021, commencing at 1 o'clock. And at this stage, it will be as we are right now, I would imagine. So on screen and live stream. So thank you to everyone. I appreciate everybody who tuned in to watch this this stream. I'd like to say it's gone like clockwork, but it certainly hasn't. So I now need a motion that the meeting be closed to the members of the public as per section 66 of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider an item as we deal with it. Personal information being information which is released would result in an unreasonable disclosure of information about any person or their personal affairs. Can I have somebody move and second that? Councillor Whelan and seconded. Councillor Kent. All put it to a vote. All in favour of? Councillor Tasari, Whelan, Bauer, Lark, Kent, Rooks, Lang, Lark and Holstead. Carried. Thank you so much for everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed. There was a little bit of entertainment there. We'll see you in a month's time if we all just pause for a couple of seconds for the end of the stream. Thank you.